Hello and welcome to our weekly look inside Syria. I'm Hazem Sika. Well, relations between Syria and Turkey have hit an all-time low as cross-border fighting left 5 Turkish civilians dead. Earlier this week, Turkey intercepted a Syria-bound plane saying it was carrying Russian-made defense equipment, a claim Russia denies. Ahmed Saleh reports.
Turkish fighter jets on Wednesday intercepted a Syrian passenger plane. Turkey's leaders suspected it was carrying military gear to the Syrian government. The plane was en route from Moscow to Damascus and was forced to land in Ankara, where authorities confiscated the cargo. The Turkish Prime Minister says the plane was carrying military supplies.
The equipment, tools, material and ammunition was being sent from a Russian agency that's the equivalent to our machinery and chemistry industry agency to the Syrian Defense Ministry. This equipment is now being examined by the relevant units.
But so far, Turkey hasn't supplied any evidence of what it says it seized. And Russia has denied sending any weapons to Syria, although the Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov confirmed that the cargo included legal radar equipment.
Because of the various speculations on the incident with the Syrian plane, I would like to say that we don't have any secrets. We checked on the situation. Of course, there were no arms on the plane, and there couldn't be there. On the plane was cargo that the legal Russian supplier sent by legal means to the legal customer. This cargo is electric equipment for radars, dual-purpose equipment, but not forbidden by any international conventions.
Syria has called the incident an act of piracy and a violation of international law. Syrian state television showed pictures of what it said were armed Turkish soldiers moments before they confiscated the cargo. It said the troops humiliated the plane's crew by handcuffing them and treating them roughly. This latest development is yet another sign of the deteriorating relations between Turkey and Syria. Recent mortar fire from Syria into Turkey had already strained their relationship. Turkey has since released the passenger jet and its crew. But the incident caused a diplomatic dispute between Russia and Turkey, and it emphasized the continuing rift between regional and international powers over which side to support in the war inside Syria. Omar Saleh, Al Jazeera.
Well, joining us to talk more about this are our 3 guests in London. Fadi Hakura, a specialist on Turkey with the British think tank Chatham House. In Tripoli, Bassam Imadi, a foreign relations representative of the Syrian National Council. He's also Syria's former ambassador to Sweden. And in Moscow, we have Vyacheslav Matuzov, a former Russian diplomat. Good to have you all with us. Bassam Imadi, I want to start with you, and I want to ask you first of all your reaction to Turkey's move to force this Syrian-bound plane to land in Turkey and seize its contents.
Thank you for having me on your show. Now, actually, it is yet another proof that Russia is standing very strongly behind this regime, which is killing its own people. Now, as you know, the price has gone higher for us. Almost 200 people killed every day, tens of buildings destroyed, and thousands of people injured and made homeless, and refugees outside Syria. And still Russia claims to support or supply Syria with non-military weapons, and this is really a joke now. And it's a silly joke and unfortunately a sad one. Now they should understand that they should stop providing this regime with weapons and ammunition, as Mr. Erdogan said, to kill the people of Syria. And enough is enough. Who is going to believe that these shipments were normal hardware for civilian use? Why should they take it on plane? We know that people would not ship such equipment on planes unless they are urgent and necessary. And we all know that this regime is falling down by the day. So they are still in Russia, unfortunately, friendly country and friendly people, but still standing on the wrong side in this problem. And I hope that not only Turkey, but every country that the planes go over its airspace would down those Syrian planes in order to show the world that what is coming from Russia is only death weapons that are killing people in Syria.
Vyacheslav Matuzov, now we heard the defense there from the Russian foreign minister saying that they have nothing to hide here. There were no arms on the plane. The material was for for dual use for civilian purposes as well. But I want to ask you more specifically about the comments from the US State Department, which denounced Russia's overall policy, which they say was one of aiding the Syrian regime and calling it morally bankrupt. What do you say to that?
Well, Victoria Nuland, press secretary of State Department, was very cautious when she said about this incident. They avoid falsified information about the incident because falsification is here absolutely clear. First of all, it was weapon and ammunition. I ask all those who are insisting on military equipment on Syrian aircraft, how can 12 cartoon boxes weight 300 kilo be considered a weaponry and ammunition? It was spare parts, and Turkish government, Erdogan, President Erdogan, Premier Minister of Erdogan, knows better than anyone else what was inside, because he possesses now these spare parts for radars. Radars are now using not only on military purposes. Radars are used today in boat ships, in cars, navigator, and many other purposes, civil and military. So it was sent by one Russian company to another Syrian company.
Well, the United States, sorry to interrupt for a moment. The United States has acknowledged that the shipments are legal, the shipments that you're talking about. But the comment about Russia's overall policy being morally bankrupt, how does that strike you? Because what they're getting at there is more the fact that they have repeatedly blocked efforts in the Security Council to put pressure on Syria.
That's right. They blamed, Nuland blamed Russian policy, but not case of with aircraft. They were very cautious, very precious in qualification of this case. It differed, absolutely different from that qualification that we heard from Syrian opposition. It was wrong approach to this accident. Turkey has no right to land. If they demand to down any civil planes, it is a criminal case. It should be looked into these cases by international criminal court, because civil aviation is not the subject of any experiment, military experiment. They in the plane were 35 passengers, between them 17 Russian women and children. Why should military planes, now the Russian government has the right to demand from Turkish government to return back to the possessor of these goods to the Russian company, because till it was unloaded in Damascus airport, it is in possession of Russian companies. And Russia insists from Turkish government to return these items to Russia. It is not a convenient step. It is big mistake of Erdogan. It is big diplomatical and political scandal.
Let's talk a bit more about where Turkey stands on this. Fadi Hakura, standing up to Bashar al-Assad, as was the case here, is one thing, but getting into a fight with Vladimir Putin is quite something else. I mean, does Turkey risk damaging its relations with Russia, relations that it has nurtured now for some time?
So far, Turkey and Russia have been quite successful separating their bilateral relationship, whether it's economic, trade and energy, from the dispute over Syria. But increasingly now the ties between them are becoming more fraught, more complicated. We can see a negative tone emerging in those ties. So yes, we are big. So far it has been, they have managed to separate the bilateral relationship from the Syrian dispute, but there is a risk that they will start conflating should the disagreements continue.
Bassam Imadi, I saw you shaking your head there a little earlier to what our guest in Moscow was saying, and I'm sure you want to respond to that. So I'll let you respond to that first, but I want to ask you as well about Syria's opposition. But first of all, if you just want to respond to what Vyacheslav was saying.
Well, actually, he's talking about few kilograms and few packages. And unfortunately, he forgot about all the ships and those military ships that unloaded their shipments in Tartus, the Russian base, unfortunately. And these were, if he doesn't know, I can tell him, these were really bombs and missiles that are hitting our people every day and every time. And they're causing so much atrocities in Syria by this regime. He doesn't talk about that. He is complaining about few boxes, but these few boxes are the sensitive equipment that make other killing machines work. So I think one should now face the truth about it. Russia is supporting fully this regime, and it is becoming a partner in killing the Syrian people. And I'm very sorry for that, because we used to love the Russians because we have so many Russians among us in Syria. We have so many families that come from Russian descendants, and this is really bad. What the Russian government is doing is bad for the future relation between the Syrian people and the Russian people. And I hope they would stop and think about the future, because the future with this regime is nothing. The future is with the people of Syria, not with this regime that is going to fall very soon.
But Bassam, I know as a member of the Syrian National Council, a lot of your time must be spent trying to build up international support for your group against the Syrian regime. But isn't part of the problem the fact that the opposition in Syria is so divided? And if there is any real leadership there, it is a very loosely defined one.
Well, to talk about the division in the opposition is one thing. Now, we know that even the countries outside Syria, the countries are even divided in what they should do about Syria and the Syrian issue and the Syrian crisis now. Now, when it comes to the Syrian opposition, I can tell you that now the Syrian National Council that has really been going into a very difficult time because of the problems inside. I hope that the leadership would be convinced now that they should do a move in the coming meeting in Doha to change the way that this SNC has been working all the time since it was established last year.
But there have been meetings like this before, Bassam, and they've gone nowhere. What makes you think that things will be any different this time around?
Because this time it's, we said enough is enough. Those groups that have established the SNC do not have the right to continue in the way that the SNC has been going. They chose, each of those groups chose one and make them into an office. They call it the executive office, and they are leading the SNC, and actually they are leading it in a very bad way. Now we are talking about 11 offices that have been put out of work by this leadership, and now in this meeting in Doha, it will be decided whether this SNC is going to be democratic, whether these offices are going to be functioning well by putting competent people to lead them and to work and to help the Syrian people inside. If not, I can tell you that you will see many withdrawals and the SNC will die away by itself. So we are very hopeful that the leadership, the executive office, the 11 persons who are there will be convinced and change the whole structure of the SNC, and we are very hopeful about that.
Fadi Hakura, over the past few days we have seen Turkey scrambling fighter jets to its border with Syria for the first time, and there is a danger here, and what we've also seen as well is this action by Turkey's forces to force that plane to land in Turkey. Is there a danger that Turkey is slowly being dragged in to the civil war in Syria?
I think that there is definitely a slippery slope where Turkey is getting dragged into the Syrian quagmire. The Turkish government is feeling increasingly frustrated because it's really in a corner. On one hand, Turkey is facing some very, very powerful countries such as Russia, China, Iran, and Iraq that are preventing Turkey from reacting forcefully against Bashar al-Assad. At the same time, also Washington and Turkey's European allies are not keen to get militarily involved in Syria. At the same time, also Turkish public opinion increasingly is against the government's approach to Syria, and does not want to see Turkey get dragged into the Syrian civil war.
Vyacheslav Matuzov, do you fear that the longer this conflict drags on and the longer Russia is seen as aiding the Assad regime, that there is a sort of moral case against Russia that is growing here?
I repeat once again, Russia doesn't support Syrian regime. Russia take the same stand with Syrian government that they had before the crisis.
If that's the case, then sorry to interrupt, Vyacheslav. If that is the case, then why has Russia, along with China, two of the 5 permanent members in the Security Council, why have they continually vetoed resolutions that sought to put concerted pressure on Damascus? I mean, you want as much as anyone else to see an end to this conflict, don't you?
I explain why. Because if we don't use veto, we can have a war, a civil, not civil war, a military intervention like in Libya. We don't want wars in the Middle East. If it will be changes, regime, by peaceful, political means, we are not against. Please do it. If you don't capable to do it, we are not responsible for that, sir. Because if they are opposition, apply to foreign military forces to help them to change regime, it is not acceptable, not Syrially, not Arabically, not Islamically. International forces can be involved in this crisis. We suggest to opposition once again that they should sit with the government and talk about future political settlement, but not using military forces. Military forces, responsibility for all massacres are returned to those who insist on military solution. Russia rejects military solution fully, unconditionally.
Bassam Imadi, I want to ask you about the worries in the international community and also among many Syrians that some of these Islamic groups among the Syrian opposition are gaining more traction inside the country and that they are playing an increasing role in Syria's civil war. Is that a justified fear?
It's only a myth. I can tell you very frankly, the people of Syria are now fighting to defend themselves. Unfortunately, your guest from Russia is exactly like Bashar Assad. It seems he's living on another planet. He's talking about peaceful solution. What peaceful solution? The people of Syria went for 10 months peacefully demonstrating in the street, and the only answer from this regime was to kill them, to use weapons against them. So what could they do? Talking about peaceful solutions, this regime rejected the Arab initiative, rejected Annan plan, and now doing everything possible to make the Ibrahimi initiative also die away. What kind of peaceful solution can we accept? Can we expect? And also those Islamic movements that everybody is talking about, where are they? We can see some people fighting, and of course they believe in God, they believe in some slogans that they are raising, but no one can say that these are foreigners. So those are fighting to liberate their land. We saw this in Libya. We saw many Islamists fighting. But where is Qaeda now? Where are those jihadist movements? We can see nothing. I am now in Libya. I'm in Tripoli. I can see a very, very nice, peaceful country now, in spite of some incidents that are taking place. But these are in no way Qaeda or jihadist movements. They are movements by the people themselves. So this is what is happening exactly in Syria. People are defending themselves, and they are raising slogans of Allahu Akbar or something like that. What's wrong with that? This is what they believe in. But they have no connection with Qaeda or with jihadists. And I hope that the world would stop talking about these things and look into the real matter, that people are being killed every day in the hundreds, and they are being made homeless in the thousands. And I can tell you now, most of the cities in Syria are destroyed, and this is going day by day, and it is time to stop this, and I hope the world will do something now about it.
Fadi Hakura, how real is the fear that some of these, what some would call extremist groups, jihadist groups and so on, are gaining more power among the opposition forces in Syria? Does that complicate the situation if it is the case?
I think we really don't know, to be honest, how powerful these so-called radical groups are, how representative they are of the Syrian opposition. What we do know for sure is that the United States administration, whether Republican or Democrat, usually cite the presence of these radical groups as a reason not to supply weapons to the Syrian armed opposition. So it's definitely causing a lot of concern among policymakers in Washington and the major European capitals.
Is there more that Turkey could be doing here? I mean, it does seem that they are trying to sort of straddle a fine line here between not wanting to be seen as supporting the opposition forces too much, but at the same time giving them shelter and opposing the Assad regime, calling for Assad to step down. Can they continue along that road?
I think that Turkey cannot really escalate the situation or take any unilateral measures on its own. Any action that Turkey takes will be coordinated very, very tightly with Washington and with its NATO allies. The Turkish government has said very, very clearly and repeatedly that it will not undertake any measures unilaterally, whether going militarily into Syria or, for example, setting up a buffer zone on the Syrian side of the border.
Vyacheslav, you are nodding in agreement to some of that.
Yes, I agree with each word that I heard right now, because Turkey, it is very pity, now take a position that contradict their national interest, because it is hearing exactly instructions from Washington. That I don't exclude that even information about some cargo in Syrian airplanes they received from American intelligence services. So I think that while it is following by American position, it will be not independent Turkish decision. I think all of us today are connected with the results of American internal political situation, a presidential election. We'll see what will be done in the Middle East after presidential election, after November 6th.
Let's talk a little. I mean, you bring up the presidential election. That's an interesting point. I want to put that to Bassam Imadi. Regardless of who wins this election in the US in November, how do you see a US policy evolving over the next few months into next year?
We hope that the American administration will change its position to be more realistic towards our country, because actually the blockade that the United States has put over delivering us qualitative weapons, that by that we mean anti-aircraft missiles and anti-tank missiles. I hope that this blockage will be lifted, because actually this blockage has been causing the death of many people. We see that the Syrian fighters now are bombing and shelling the towns and villages with barrels of TNT, and these are causing a lot of destruction and a lot of death in the country. And at the same time, unfortunately, the West and the Western countries are blocking any ability to defend ourselves and stop these planes from killing our people. Now, I can tell you something. Had we had some weapons like that, we would have finished this regime long time ago. You can definitely hear every day that the Free Syrian Army is making more and more advances inside the country. Just yesterday, they took over a base in the suburbs of Damascus, and just 2 days ago they took a very important base on the road between Damascus and Aleppo, that is in Mu'arrat al-Nu'man. And I think the Free Syrian Army could do much better if we had some weapons to down those places, or at least to make them unfunctional, because this is actually what is putting an end to this conflict and this issue in Damascus or in Syria. Now we hope that the American administration will have a free hand after the elections to take or to make the right decision vis-a-vis the Syrian
All right, and that is going to have to be the last word. I want to thank all three of our guests in London, Fadi Hakura, in Tripoli, Bassam Imadi, and in Moscow, Vyacheslav Matusov. And thank you for watching. Our Syrian coverage, remember, continues 24 hours a day and on our website, aljazeera.com. There you can find this program if you want to watch it again. For now, though, from the team here, goodbye.